Welcome, everybody. We have a great program tonight. It's so exciting. I have been waiting a long time.
Yeah, we almost forgot about it.
Well, if you were on Facebook, you wouldn't have. Because your faces were on our page. I think they think you're working here now. But
Oh, we are now.
poor Howard Stith and Bullfrog, Mike Bullfrog Rogers. And I'm not even waste time. We're going to start the music and start enjoying the program tonight. So give a round of applause. They're finally here. And there's no snow.
Well, thank you. I hope we live up to it now. I forget what I said we were going to start with. We had a plan here.
Yeah, was it
10 minutes ago, we had a plan.
down in Louisiana?
Oh, yeah. Well, we do basically Louisiana and Mississippi style Delta blues. And during the course of that, we'll try to do a little educational thing here, too, on the difference between Delta and Piedmont blues, because there were two distinct guitar styles that started with the early blues before it moved up to Chicago and Detroit. But we're going to start off in Louisiana, so let's go on down there. Going down to Louisiana, get me a mojo hand. I'm going down to Louisiana, get me a mojo hand. I'm going to show all you women just how to love your man. Let me tell all you women how to keep a man at home. Yes, let me tell all you women how to keep a man at home. You got to eagle rockin', cherish his black cat bone. Down to New Orleans behind the rising sun. You know what I mean, right? I'm going down to New Orleans behind the rising sun. Down with them green cabin girls. I've got to be leaving, honey. My troubles have just begun. All right, let's go down to Louisiana. Gonna go down, honey, get the Johnny Conqueror. I'm gonna go down, mama, get the Johnny Conqueror. I'm gonna fix it up right, baby, just to mess with you. Down to Louisiana, get me a mojo hand. Going down to Louisiana, get me a mojo hand. I'm gonna show all you women, baby, how to love your man. Going down to Louisiana. Thank you. So because if I don't do it now, I'll forget about this. I was mentioning the difference between Delta and Piedmont blues. The Piedmont blues was that basically an area along the East Coast from basically Baltimore down to the Florida, top of Florida. And the difference was in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, you had a thumb style for the blues that went like this. And the Piedmont was much more delicate. It was, and then you get the anomalies like Mississippi John Hurt, he did Piedmont blues, but he lived in Avalon, Mississippi his entire life. And that's somebody's doctoral thesis right there. How did he pick up that style? But as long as we were down in New Orleans, my greatest influence was probably Huddie Ledbetter, known as Leadbelly. The first song that I ever learned to sing when I was about that big was from an old 78 of Leadbelly singing Goodnight Irene. Yeah, we know that song, right? People who have never heard of Leadbelly say, I don't know who that is. Well, he wrote Goodnight Irene, Pick a Bale of Cotton, Cotton Fields Back Home. I'm trying to think of the other popular ones. Bring Me a Little Water, Sylvie. A lot of the popular folk songs of the 60s came from Leadbelly and were reworked. This is one that I'm sure everyone knows, called Down in New Orleans. It's done in 1938. You may not know Leadbelly's arrangement of this song, but you may know the song. Whoops, let's try it on the... Way down in New Orleans, house called the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy and me. Oh God, I'm one. Yes, way down in New Orleans, house called the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy. Oh God, I'm one. Go tell my baby sister, please don't do like I have done. On that house down in New Orleans, they call the Rising Sun. Yes, go tell my baby sister, please don't do like I have done. On that house down in New Orleans, they call the Rising Sun. I'm going back down to New Orleans. My race is almost run. I'm going back to spend the rest of my days beneath that rising sun. Yes, way down in New Orleans, house called the Rising Sun. It's been the ruin of many a poor boy and me. Oh God, I'm down in New Orleans. New York City. Well, Biddy Leadbelly, was born and raised in Mooringsport, Louisiana, which is a town about the size of this library. And of course, everyone knew everybody else's business. So one of the greatest days in his life was when John Lomax took him to New York City. He fell in love with New York City. He said, "This is a town you can get lost in." Yeah. Hard to get lost in Mooringsport. Although I'm not really sure about that. You know what I'm saying? One of the, well, no, I'm not going to go. We don't have time to do the side stories. I was going to tell a Mooringsport story, but it's, talk to me later. Anyway, this is a song that Leadbelly wrote about New York City, of things to do in New York City besides watch the Red Sox beat the Yankees. There's New York City Blues. Wrong song. I started mixing up two songs. I'm sorry. Get to New York City, let me tell you what to do. You can get up on a bus and ride up Fifth Avenue in New York City. Woo, ain't that a city? New York City, Lord, you got to know my line. You walk outside when it looks like rain. You can get on board that subway train in New York City. Woo, ain't that a city? New York City, Lord, you got to know my line. And those trains keep running, they won't stand still. I'm going to take a train out to Sugar Hill in New York City. Woo, ain't that a city? New York City, Lord, I gotta know my line. Let's go down to New York City on that train. Yes. I get back to Louisiana, gonna walk and talk, tell everybody about the state of New York and New York City. Woo, ain't that a city? New York City, Lord, I gotta know my line. I get down to New Orleans, you know I'll tell about that railroad that they call the L in New York City. Woo, ain't that a city? New York City, Lord, I gotta know my line. Let's go back to New York City one more time. Yeah. Woo! New York City. Let's switch guitars here. We got all the way to New York City from Lawrenceport, Louisiana, forgetting about the fact we had to go through Baltimore. To do an educational program. I did these guitars backwards, but that's another thing. We'll come back to it.
It's going to play them for you backwards,
too. Say a little song about Baltimore. It's one of the destinations that the blues singers would head to. You know, so there was a mystique about Baltimore. On the traditional almost in tune guitar. Just fly, he don't walk now, he don't run, just Look, I took a mess of the cracker. Well, was your mama chocolate back? If your mama draws the back, I say, look, I took a soda cracker and it's green. Rocky road, promenade. Red light, green light, round town. Found a penny on the ground. But I found that I never known. Walking down the rocky road, and it's green. Rocky road, promenading but if you go by Baltimore, want no carpet on my floor. Come along down, go with me. Should mention also, this is of course one of the distinctive styles of blues. That was Piedmont blues, by the way, with that alternating bass. But the other thing was, it's called bottleneck blues for the reason that I use a broken bottleneck to slide up on the strings. It made it possible to copy the voice. You may have, if you go by Baltimore. So it was a popular style. And the steel guitar was popular because, especially when I get over to the National, I think most people are familiar with dobro guitars. You find those in the bluegrass style. Well, the Dobra brothers started that company, and then they had a falling out. I don't recall what the exact circumstances were, but one of the brothers went off and formed the National Company and started making resonator guitars out of brass with nickel plating. And that became the favorite of the blues singers because for the first time you could be heard above the piano. And, we'll do a Delta blues here. We have to go back down south, and the best way to get there is to go down Highway 61. So, Highway 61 actually starts in Thunder Bay, Ontario, up in Canada, then crosses the border, runs through St. Paul, Minnesota, and from there follows the Mississippi all the way down to New Orleans and the Gulf of Mexico. People leaving the plantations and the sharecroppers would head north on Highway 61 to get to St. Louis, Chicago, Kansas City, Detroit. Or they go east or west on Highway 49. That's the famous crossroads you hear about in the Robert Johnson story. Going to sell your soul at the crossroads is 61 and 49. It's the place to go. Here's a song about Highway 61. said, Title 61. Please, Mr. Truck Driver, won't you let me ride you blind? I said, please, Mr. Truck Driver, won't you let me ride you blind? You don't even have to stop, just slow down and I can slow down behind. Oh, let's go down Highway 61, Mr. Bullfrog. Lord, if I should die before you think my time has come. Say if I should die now before you think my time has come. Want you to bury my body right by old Highway 61. Yes, you can bury my body right down by that highway side. You can bury my body right down by that highway side. So my old evil spirit can grab a Greyhound horse and ride. Because the 61 highway is the longest road I know. Yes, the 61 highway is the longest road I know. She runs from way up in Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, let's see how far she runs now. Yeah, the Highway 61. We'll come back to that if we have time. Yeah. We're trying to squeeze a 2-hour show into 1 hour. Oh, I know. This is one from our Going Home CD. It's called the Fingerprints Blues. It's an old Memphis Mini song that Joe McCoy wrote. I got inspired to do this one because of an incident over at the state prison in Concord, New Hampshire. I don't know if anybody heard about that. They will no longer allow the prisoners in the state prison to have strawberries. Seems a couple of years ago, one of the prisoners was allergic and it made him break out. At least that was his story.
Be glad you don't have 2 hours.
I'm a good child. Now I'm prison bound. I'm a good child. But now I'm prison bound. You know by that they have got my fingerprints down. When they found my gun, they found my switchblade knife. Oh, when they found my gun, switchblade knife. You know by that, I've got my fingerprints twice. And now I'm ducking and dodging, rolling from town to town. Lord, I'm ducking and dodging, rolling from town to town. My friends have all left me because my fingerprints have been found. Yes. If you can't come to the courtroom, come to these prison walls. If you can't come to the courtroom, then come to these prison walls. You can see for yourself how bad company will let you fall. God, those fingerprints mean. Thank you. Thank you. Well, other than guitar and piano, which we don't have, one of the most common instruments among the blues players was the harmonica, because back in those days, how much were they?
Oh,
35
probably.
cents to a buck
Or less.
or less. And now, what's your cheap one go for these days?
About $35 to $40.
He has more invested in harmonicas than I do in guitars. That always boggles my mind. So we do have some young fans here, so we wanted to do a song that we both learned back in about 4th grade when they were still teaching American folk music in the schools before somebody decided that was redundant and unnecessary. It's one that I'm sure a lot of you here know. An old tune called Shortening Bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, mama's little baby loves shortening bread. 2 little children lying in bed, one more sick, the other most dead. Sent for the doctor said, give them children some shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Yeah. Put on the skinny, put on the lid. Mama gonna make a little shortening bread. That ain't all she's gonna do. Gonna make a little coffee too. Mama's little baby loves shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Yeah. Mike Bullfrog rides to a harmonica. 6 months for the skillet, 6 months for the lid, 6 months for the gal making shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Yes, she does. Woo, yeah, we got children there. Mr. Mike Bullfrog Rogers. Huh? So now I'll get my sweetie out here. Had an interesting conversation with another blues singer up in Montreal a couple of years ago. I was up there, and we were talking about, he had an old National too. We don't know anybody who has recently purchased an original antique National. I traded a pickup truck for this one, and the truck was all rusted out. Yeah, so I figured I got a great deal because that was back in '74, and this thing, not a spot of rust on it. He had to trade 5 guns for his. So let's see. I forgot what I was going to do. There was a reason I pulled this one off. Oh, no, he had to do some Robert Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Johnson, considered the king of the Delta blues, despite the fact that recent discoveries indicate that he probably learned most of his songs from Son House. But this is one attributed to Robert Johnson called, and I hesitate to do this on a beautiful day like this, because she's got to come into my kitchen because it's going to be raining outdoors after the last 2 months. Don't want to press our luck here. Did you? Want me walking, dude?
Sure.
Since I brought up Sun House, if you like this style of music, you should really check out a YouTube video of Sun House. There are a couple of them that are out there of him performing at various folk festivals. He's fun to watch because he didn't use picks, and the way he beats on the guitar just makes my hand hurt watching him. This is what he wrote called the Walkin' Blues. I woke up this morning, felt around for my shoes. You know by that I've got these walking blues. And I woke up this morning, felt around for my shoes. You know by that I've got these walking blues. Feel like blowing my own lonesome horn. I looked around and all I had was gone. So now I feel like blowing my own lonesome horn. I looked around now, all I had was gone. Leaving this morning, if I have to ride the blinds, I'm so mistreated I don't mind dying. Leaving this morning, if I have to ride the blinds, I'm so mistreated, Lord, and I don't mind dying. Well, some folks say these words, blues ain't bad, but it's the meanest feeling now I've ever had. Some folks say these words, blues ain't bad, but it's the meanest feeling, Lord, that I have ever had. Because I woke up this morning, felt around for my shoes. You know by that I've got walking blues. I woke up this morning, felt around for my shoes. You know by that I've got these walking blues. Yeah, walking blues. Hey. I'm missing one guitar.
I mentioned the CDs. CDs.
Oh, yeah. We should. I never think about it. Yeah, we should probably mention, if you'd like to take poor Howard and Bullfrog home with you tonight, but you don't want to cook breakfast for us in the morning, we do have CDs available for $10 each, so stop by, take a look and check in with us after the show. Also, come by if you have any questions. I don't always hit everything, and people say, well, what about, oh, okay, forgot to bring that up. Well, let's do our sound check song, because we only got through one verse of it. So we'll do this is an old Leroy Carr tune called The Alabama Women. Leroy Carr was a piano player from Indianapolis and had some of the most beautiful lyrics of all the blues singers with that real poetry, especially his corn liquor blues. There's one called The Alabama Women. Never been down on that Mobile and Casey line. Never been down on that Mobile and Casey line. Just wanna know now, honey, have you seen that good gal of mine? I rode to Central, darling, hustle on the L&L. I rode to Central, baby, hustled on the L&L. Said them Alabama women look just like some section band. Don't cry now, baby, your papa will be back someday. Don't cry now, honey, your daddy will be back someday. Right now I'm leaving you, darling, but I swear I won't be gone to stay. Yeah. Northern clouds look lonesome, rolling across the deep blue sea. Don't them clouds look lonesome, rolling across the deep blue sea. Lord, my baby look good when she's rolling home to me. Lord, my baby look good when she's rolling home to me. Don't my baby look good when she's rolling home to me? The Alabama one, yeah. Red Cross store and Fingerprints. All right. Ooh, water break. During World War I, which you may remember was called the Great War to End All Wars, although we were a little mistaken because 20 years later there we were in World War II. I think we really should be thankful that the U.S. hasn't been in a war since 1945, at least officially. So, during the Great War, they had an arrangement of some of the southern towns where the sharecroppers could go down to the local Red Cross store to sign up to join the army. And while the farmers went overseas to help put the Kaiser down, the Red Cross would take care of their families back home, make sure they were fed and clothed. This was a song about a man whose wife wanted him to go down to the Red Cross store to sign up to join the army. But this is what he told her. I told her, no, babe, you know I don't want to go. Well, now I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. You know, me and my wife talked for an hour. She wanted me to get some of that old Red Cross flour, but I told her, no, babe, you know I don't want to go. Lord, and I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. She said, Daddy, dear Daddy, you're driving me wild. Won't you go for your wife and child? But I told her, no, babe, you know I don't want to go. Well, now I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. She said, now listen here, Papa, what's the matter with you? You can go and fight and be a hero too. But I told her, no, babe, you know I don't want to go. Well, now and I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. Listen here, Papa, it's better I was seen feeding everybody off of pork and beans. But I told her, no, babe, you know I don't want to go. Lord, and I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. She said them Red Cross people, they'll treat you mighty fine, fixing everything up with whiskey and wine. But I told her, no, babe, you know I don't want to go. Well, and I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. See, I got a little woman who works in the Red Cross store 3 days a week. She said, now, honey, you can come and stay with me. And I told her, yes. Baby, I still won't have to go. Lord, and I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. Said I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. And I ain't going down to no Red Cross store. Yeah, that was done that. That song always makes me think of one of my uncles who, when I was growing up, taught me to love everything Italian. And I never really understood why, because my father said we were of German, Scottish, English descent. It wasn't until I was in high school that my uncle confided that he loved Italy because during World War II, an Italian family had saved his life by hiding him out in their cellar for the duration of the war. Of course, I was in Mankato, Minnesota, so I don't know how much danger he was in. Anyway, but, we had an experience, well, it was a few years ago, playing at the old Barley Pub down in Dover, when we did Leadbelly's song about the sinking of the Titanic, followed by Red Cross Store Blues. This young guy came up to me between sets. Says, why do you want to do songs from 1912 and 1918? Don't you do anything more contemporary? I actually had to think about that for a minute. I said, well, yes, we do. And we gave him this one. Oh, the Hindenburg, now the Hindenburg. Whole town's talking about the Hindenburg. The whole town's talking about the Hindenburg. Largest airship was in the world. Over New York about 4:30. Hindenburg fly a little bit too slow. Bit too slow, a little bit too slow. Hindenburg fly a little bit too slow, and the whole town's talking about the Hindenburg. Largest airship was in the world. Now the Hindenburg down on the ground. Woman started throwing her children down, oh, her children down. Woman started throwing her children down, and the whole town's talking about the Hindenburg. Largest airship was in the world. Ain't it a shame, ain't it a shame? Hindenburg gone down in flames. End of the game, Lord, the end of the game. Hindenburg burned down to her flame, and the whole town's talking about the Hindenburg. Largest airship was in the world. Oh, the humanity. Thank you. We got time for a few more here. So how about, you never have told me how you want your Rollin done, because we haven't done that. Gives a little different style here. Well, you never have told me how you honey from Memphis to Belvedere. It's a mean old road, Memphis to Belvedere. But it's a meaner road when your woman leaves you down here. And I'm going up to the gypsy, see just what she says. Yes, I'm going up to that gypsy, see just what she says. She said, with your bad luck, honey, you ought to change your rolling every day. It's a hard old road, just can't get no rest. Well, it's a hard old road, just can't get no rest. I'm going back down to Memphis, to that gal I love the best. But you never have told me how you want your rolling, darling. Said you never have informed me how you want your rolling done. Lord, you must want me to roll you, honey, from sun to sun. Yeah. Well, sit in Cincinnati.
Sure.
Let's sit aside. We're doing a slight program change here because I thought of one that we really need to put in. When I was coming back from Memphis a couple of years ago, 4 years ago. Wow, 4 years already. Came through Cincinnati, Ohio, or Cincinnati if you're a native. And discovered that back during the late 20s, early 30s, there was a thriving jug band scene in Cincinnati. And I found some old recordings. And this one song that I absolutely fell in love with called Going to Cincinnati Where They Eat Fried Food. I said, there's my song. So, yeah, hope we have time to fit this one in plus one more. It's Going to Cincinnati Where They Eat Fried Food. Well, I'm going to Cincinnati, going to spread the news, tell my pals in Chicago I don't need no shoes. Going to Cincinnati where the times are good, going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food, going to Cincinnati where the liquor bottle is good. Yes, I'm going to Cincinnati, on the 6th of May, find a women with the good cocaine. Going to Cincinnati where the times are good, going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food, going to Cincinnati where the liquor bottle is good. When you go to Cincinnati, don't get too full. You're liable to be that cop they call Saddler Bull. Going to Cincinnati where the times are good. Going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food. Going to Cincinnati where the liquor bottle is good. Let's go to Cincinnati. When you get to Cincinnati, stop at Hoghead Joe's to get your good turnip greens and your good hog jaw. Going to Cincinnati where the times are good. Going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food. Going to Cincinnati where the liquor bottle is good. Going downtown to buy my baby soap and towels to wash your underarms, keep a rat holder down. Going to Cincinnati where the times are good. Going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food. Going to Cincinnati where the liquor bottle is good. You know, the meanest man I ever saw was a judge in Cincinnati named Dirty Mac Shaw. Going to Cincinnati where the times are good. Going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food. Going to Cincinnati where the liquor bottle is good. Let's go back to Cincinnati again. my throat, I can't hardly swallow. There's a place in Cincinnati called Aucklander Hollow, but I'm going to Cincinnati where the times are good. Going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food. Going to Cincinnati where the liquor is good. Let's go back one more time. Going to Cincinnati where they eat fried food. Thank you. Well, watching the clock there, I guess it's last call. So, thank you all for coming out today. I have to confess, we were discussing whether or not to set up a sound system. I said, oh, there won't be that many people. I may have been wrong. I apologize in the back if you couldn't hear everything. Yeah. I'd like to close with the title cut off our newest CD. It's an old Charlie Patton gospel tune called Going Home, after which we'll let you do the same. And again, it's been great. Thanks for coming out.
Yes, thank you.
And do grab a card on the way out. I hope we have enough out.
I got a few with me, too.
Okay. We try to keep our calendars out about 3 months at least. You know, if you want to catch some more tunes, we're around the area. What was it?
We
Sorry?
do.
Where do you get regularly play?
We actually have a semi-regular gig at Revolution up in Rochester, the restaurant, we put the happy and happy hour between 5 and 8. And,
Nice and
5 to
early.
8, that's what I said. It's a geezer gig. 5 to 8.
Day of the week.
Thursdays,
And in
But
the
not-
summertime, it's outside of the patio, which is really nice.
which we hope happens this week. Anyway, so here's Going Home. Going home, I'm going home. If I never ever see you anymore, I'm going home, I'm going home. I'll meet you on that other shore. I've been redeemed, I've been redeemed. If I never ever see you anymore, I've been redeemed, I've been redeemed. I'll meet you on that other shore. I got it right. If I never ever see you anymore, I got it right. I'll meet you on that other shore. I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. If I never ever see you anymore, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. I'll meet you on that other shore. Fare thee well. If I never ever see you anymore, fare thee well. I'll meet you on that other shore. I'm going home, I'm going home. If I never ever see you anymore, I'm going home, I'm going home. I'll meet you on that other shore. Going home. Thank you very much. I thought you were coming with a hook.
No hooks.
No hooks.
If you enjoy programs programming like this, which I know, I can just tell we all do, please come on Saturday. We have our plant sale. It's our annual spring plant sale, and we raise money to do programming like this for the community, and it's so important. So if you need those daffodils or those irises and hanging baskets for Mom, come here. We'll have them all. Also,
For lots of money, she has a Ford plant for sale too.
I also have, we have a community dinner coming up May 30th at Margarita's, and that's in Dover, I believe. And they do all day. You can go up, and I have coupons for you. If you hand them a coupon with your dinner, and who doesn't like a burrito, hand them the coupon. We get 20% of your bill for that day.
nice.
So it's a wonderful thing that Margarita's does, and you can all help us bring programming like these fantastic guys to our library. Poor Howard Stith and Bulldog Rogers.
Bullfrog, Bullfrog.
I knew I'd
I
do
get
it.
called Mad Dog sometimes.
I knew I'd do it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having us.